Hey Raid Frayed, welcome back to Mindless Adventures. Sorry I've been gone for a while. I am trying a little something different right now. I have been doing a little bit of awesome paranormal investigations, and I want to share the tour of my location and the history of that location with you. If you're interested in watching the paranormal aspects of it, stay tuned for that coming up. I will not be in this premiere as I'm traveling to Ohio, but I hope you enjoy. Any questions, leave me a comment. But in the meantime, let's get into my video and learn the haunted history of Benton County Historical Jail. We'll see you next week.
I'm Dwight, my haunted Fowler, and this is the Old Benton County Jail. Benton County Jail itself, it was built in 1876. The town was established in 1872, so it's not much older than the town. So this stopped being used as the main jail in 1997. There were a lot of complaints, there was threats of lawsuits. It was just not a good facility. People that were staying here they had tons of complaints. The heat, there's no central air, so they had to sleep in this kind of environment. The second floor here is where the sheriff and his family would live. So there's 3 bedrooms, large bathroom. They would live here, and the wife would typically serve the food to the sheriff and the inmates.
Hey guys, welcome back to Mindless Adventures. Today I am hosting a paranormal investigation at Benton Township County Historical Jail and Fowler Theater. We are currently standing in front of the historical jail where Tommy, Helena, John, and Randy and his girlfriend are supposed to meet me here to do this investigation. I've been here once before with Omar Gosh TV and James the Fan for their fan meetup. If you haven't seen that video, go back and check it out. It was a lot of fun, but tonight is just our night. We're going in to investigate. Let's go check it out. Fun.
We've had lots of stuff. I don't know any history about what actually, if anything, occurred up here, but we've had like shuffling noises, things falling. So it can be a pretty intense area. The heat kind of adds to it, but overall, it's just if you're brave enough to come here by yourself, the lights out. Just be careful that you don't fall down there. And people often ask, this is just an interesting point of interest. Those are cots. They're old civil defense cots. They're old, really old. And people have asked me what they're there for, and just probably more for emergency things. This wall here comes off, and the story is that one of the sheriffs, whenever he would leave to go out, he would leave a note in here for his wife where he was going. And then he would put that back and she would see the note. We've had investigators come out and find this thing on the floor, and so that's something to look for. Just sort of no history to that sheriff or what had happened if something was specific to him, but it's just something that people have reported over time. So this is just a little bit of history of the jail itself. You got, pith helmets and stuff over time, motorcycle helmets, different sheriffs over time. Actually, our sheriff, so in 1958, we had the first female elected sheriff in the state of Indiana. Her husband was the sheriff before her, and about that same time is when the wife was expected. I say wife. When she was the sheriff, I'm sure she didn't serve food to the prisoners, but that was sort of when the practice kind of stopped when she became sheriff. So my guess is she, loved women's rights back in the 50s and fought for, hey, I'm not serving these guys food if I'm going to be locking them up. But I always think that's kind of cool that we actually had the first female sheriff in the state. Over here, we've got some pieces of the old cells. There's a key, but down here, some shackles they used to use, and they are not very forgiving. If you compare like to handcuffs, these are, they don't even move. They're just like locked in place. And then this is a picture of the girl that was murdered. We'll talk about the guy that who had murdered her. But if you want to get a shot of her, it's an old grainy photo, but we'll go into a little more detail when we get by his old cell. So this is the main cell. This main cell is, you were asking, someone brought up the Jacob Belling was the guy that murdered the 15-year-old girl. So it was in 1883. She was murdered. They found her. She'd been brutally stabbed and choked to death with a pocket knife. And so Jacob Belling was one of the farmhands that worked for the family. The family was very prominent. They had a lot of money. They had a town named after him. And he admitted to killing her, even though there's some controversy that maybe he didn't do it. There's some thought that maybe he had PTSD and just admitted to it because he couldn't remember. But the night before his trial, he was here in the jail, locked up, and there was any estimate from 100 to 200 townsfolk. They rode into town on horseback. They shut the town down, and they came here, and the sheriff and deputies were on hand that night. They told the sheriff to bring Jacob out, and he wouldn't do it. So he said, "I'm not bringing him out, but if you come get him yourself, I'm not going to stop you." So they broke him out. They took him about 200 yards from the family home, and they murdered him. They didn't murder him. They hung him till he died. And then they took him to a small town called Oxford, Indiana. They put him on display with a sign that basically was warning everyone else, this is what happens if you kill somebody in our town. We feel like Jacob is at least here because he never got his trial. He never had a chance to prove his guilt or innocence. So this is his cell, but for me, what's interesting, the third cell is more active than his cell. And I have no reason why, no history as to why. In my head, I wonder if like somebody was here that night and was worried they were going to be next or something, but this is one of the more active spaces. Well, when I first saw this, I didn't know what it was. I thought it was sort of conjugal visits. No, it's where we kept the women and juveniles. So apparently they weren't committing as many crimes as the adult males, but it's a little bigger, private shower, urinal. This has had some activity, more in the hallway than in here. I've been up here before and I've heard cell doors clanging downstairs. And it's not like they're shutting, but it's like somebody's rattling the doors. But this is more the office space. Over here we have a bunch of old records, books dating back to the 1800s. I mean, from a historical perspective, it's really cool because they're in good shape. You can see that people had definitely much better handwriting back then. But they are very old books and they're still holding up pretty nicely. I would say that from this point back is like this section here, for me and several others, has been the most active and probably the creepiest part of the whole paranormal experience. Heavy breath, growls, shadows. It's just like that room behind you there is where the dispatchers used to work 24/7. Imagine being a dispatcher at 3 in the morning down in this place. If anybody's taller than me, you'll notice there's a knife up here. Had no idea there was a knife for like first 2 years I was investigating. And a friend of mine who's taller, he's like, "Why is there a knife up here?" I had no idea. And so I don't know if somebody kept it there sort of like, I'm working by myself, I'd like to have some sort of protection. But we had a group, they were doing a Ouija board session here, and it spelled out knife. And I knew that knife was there, and I hadn't said anything. I was just kind of curious to see what they would get. And it spelled out knife, and I told Brian, their lead, I said, "Why don't you go look in that tube?" And so I don't know why it's up there, but I'm not moving it. Did you hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anyone upstairs?
Shouldn't be.
Yeah, I heard 2 taps.
Oh, Randy, you're out down here?
Yeah, all of us are down here.
Yeah, everybody's down here. It was upstairs.
And that sounded like it was in the building too.
Oh,
Yeah.
This back section is where the old cells, original cells are. Well, I shouldn't say original. The ones upstairs are as well. I'm going to use my flashlight because I forgot mine upstairs.
What is that?
It was upstairs too.
I heard that.
So there are 8 cells down here, and we had a quote from a sheriff in 1964. Actually, he was a former sheriff at that time. And he said they would bring prisoners down here and chain them to the wall until they confessed or went crazy. So you can take a look in there compared to like the cells upstairs. There's 8 of them total down here. And I can't even imagine being in a basement, middle of the night, things happening, noises upstairs.
Oh wow.
And you can go.
This is probably the creepiest basement I've seen.
Other than that, just where it goes down.
Yeah, like I said, that's why they call it the dungeon. Like I said, I don't know of any history here other than the fact that they said they would chain people to the walls. And in this first cell, there are 2 spikes on either side with barbed wire wrapped around them. I have no idea why you would have barbed wire. I don't know if anybody was doing anything. The justice back then was probably even worse than it is today. There was no social media to rat people out with. And that's the jail. It's a lot of nooks and crannies, lots of places to investigate.